What is up, guys? Beardy here, and today we're going to take a look at Rustedit. This is going to be a introductory course to Rustedit. This will show you how to quickly make a procedurally generated map, not really a custom map. You can do some custom stuff to it, but we'll get into that later. I'll have later videos that show how to actually do custom map creation in this same editor, but I believe you should learn procedurally generated map creation first because it teaches you the basics of map creation. So we'll start off by making a new map. Say we want it 4,500. That's 4.5K. I recommend putting your resolutions up to what they recommend or as high as they go. Alpha doesn't matter as much as the height map does. So when you go editing it, but you want them all up decently high. Just take them to recommended. Splat texture is going to be what everything looks like when you're looking at the map editing as a default. I like it to be grass because it's pleasant. And our biome is, the default biome that you're going to be living in while you edit the map. Arid is obviously desert. Temperate is like forest and field and stuff. Tundra is like, between the two. And Arctic is obviously Arctic. So I like to keep it temperate. And height map we won't worry about right now. When I get into custom map making, we'll get into that section. But it doesn't really matter because we are going to procedurally generate. So you just hit create now. And it's just going to load up a square. It's not even going to be a map or anything. It's just going to be a square of grass. And this is where you would make your map. On this thing, you would make your map. You can't see anything right now. If you hit G, it shows you the map of whatever you're working on. As you can see, there's nothing on the map because we haven't built anything yet. Everything is below sea level right now. And that is why nothing is on the map. If I was to, say, take out a tool, erase lower terrain, something big here, and say, something like that. And if I was to get it up high enough, let's get rid of them soft edges. If I was to get it up high enough, you'll see that it starts to breach the water line, and oh, there we go. We got some land now, right? So at default, when you first load a map, sea level is going to be pretty far down there. Doesn't matter for procedurally generating, but if you were making a map, you would bring this terrain up to the level you need it at, sea level and above, right? And you would make your map that way. If you're going to procedurally generate, we'll get into that later. That's where the height maps come in and stuff like that. But there are a lot easier ways to create landmass than to sit here with a brush and, change the terrain level, which you'll be doing a lot of that anyway. So for procedural generation, you're just going to go over to tools and you're going to go procedural tools, native, custom selection. And over here is basically everything you need for a map. You don't need everything in here. A lot of it you do, but some of it you don't. So we'll just go over it really quickly here. A height map is basically the terrain itself, what the shape of the island's going to be, the peaks and the valleys. That will actually give you the map itself, just the terrain, right? So that's the height map. Biome is, well, we'll do one by one. Here, I'll show you. We'll do, if I hit none, it just selects everything, and we'll do just a height map. So a height map is basically just the shape of the island, everything above sea level, the peaks and valleys, and, that's it. So we make a new height map, and you can see it's brought everything up to sea level where it wants to, and it's made this nice procedurally generated map for us, right? You can see there's nothing on there, but there's a lot of, hills and peaks and valleys and all that stuff, but there's literally nothing on here right now because all we've done is the height map. So that is the height map when you're talking about what is required to have a map. And now that we've generated that, if you didn't like this one, you could just run select a procedural component again on the height map, and it'll generate you a whole new one. In fact, we'll do that. And you can just see, excuse me, it's going to be somewhat similar because obviously it's procedurally generated and, you know, things are in different places. It is a different landmass, but it's going to have a lot of the same features because it's running on a algorithm where it needs to check a lot of boxes and it needs to fix that fit that algorithm. So say this is the landmass we're going for. This is great. This is the height map we want. And then we go back to our procedural tools, custom selection, and we can unselect height map because we've done it. And go to biome. Biome is basically when I was opening this map, I was telling you Arctic, tundra, all that stuff, right? Arid. That creates those zones. Right now, we're just looking at a base map. There's no cold part. There's no hot part. No nothing. If I put in a biome, it's going to put in, this is the arid climate. This is the temperate climate. This is the Arctic climate. This is the tundra. And it'll do that procedurally according to the algorithm. If you're making a custom app, you would go in there and do that all yourself, right? So we're just going to let it do it. And right away, you'll be able to see, okay, well, that's where it wants the Arctic, right? And then the arid or the desert is up at the top here. And then our tundra bands in between the Arctic and the temperate, right? So say you didn't like this for whatever reason, right? There's not enough, there's too much of this or not enough of that, right? You could, of course, do it again. Just run your biome selection again. And it'll give you a whole new selection, but according to their biome. So it's going to be somewhat similar. Or according to their algorithm, I mean. It's going to be somewhat similar, but, you know, you could always reload the map and try again. I get a little bit more temperate here. Anyway, say this is the map we're going to use. I like this. We're going to move on, right? Go back to our procedural tools. Oops, sorry. Native, custom selection. And topology is basically, I'll do it and then I'll show you because it's easier to show you than to explain it. The topology basically is what dictates how the game acts or what the game does with that information. So as you can tell, nothing looks like it's changed. But if you go over to your terrain painter and you go to your topology layer, it'll show you all the topology. And right away, you see all this red light up, and that's because we're in the field channel. So this is anything that's a field in the game. And then you can change these. So here's the cliffs, right? That's where the cliffs are going to be in the game. Here's summits, and those are obviously going to be at the peaks of the hills. Beach side. So one of the requirements to spawn in the game is it needs to be a beach side. So there's all the beach side and then, you know, beach. Forest, this is where all the forests are going to be. This is all procedurally generated. You could come in here. When you're making a custom map, you have to come in here and do all this, all these topologies. You have to come in here and do it yourself. You can do a combination of procedural and custom. So you don't necessarily have to do every one of these yourself, but a lot of these you're going to want to at least control. So anyway, things like, let's say, cliffside. There's none here now because we haven't put any cliffs in yet, but cliffside is where nodes spawn. So stone, metal, and sulfur nodes all spawn at cliffsides. So if you wanted to control where those spawn, you could put a big, you know, that field I want full of nodes. You could actually do that if you want. The same as the other one I wanted to point out, it's called roadside. I don't see it anywhere. So it's not gonna light up right now either because there are no roads. But roadside is where road loot spawns. So that's kind of important too if you're a map editor. There's tier 1 to 0. Tier 0 is basically where the easy stuff is going to be. Tier, like, the easier tier. And it's also where you spawn in tier 0, right? So the easier tiered monuments and stuff will want to be in tier 0 and stuff like that if you're following the general procedural generation of the game, right? Anyway, so basically that's it. It tells the game how to act, right? Here's the mainland. This is ocean. There's forest. This is a monument. That's cliff. Here's roadside. You can't build on the road. That kind of thing, right? That's topology. Basically dictates what the map can do with that area. What the game engine can do with that area. Excuse me. So, we've loaded up our topology, and then the next one is going to be the Splat map. And Splat is basically what the user sees. It's going to be the grass on the ground, the forests, and stuff like that, right? So, in the map editor, you don't actually see forests and stuff like that because the rendering would be ridiculous. You might as well just be playing the game, right? But it represents forests with these dark green blotches. They're a little bit darker green than the rest. Those blotches there are the forest. And if you wanted to a more definite delineation of where the forests are, you could just go back to your topology brush and go to forest. And there you can see all those dark blotches light up. So anyway, basically that is your basic map. There's nothing on it right now, but that is all the requirements for you could actually load this map in right now, and you could spawn on it and play it. There's nothing to do here. There's nothing, but you could do it. Now, in order to add stuff is where the other options come in. We go to our custom selection. Basically, I'm going to do it all at once here because it's just easier, but I'll explain everything to you before we do it and as I check them. So cliff topology is basically, like I was telling you before, tells where the nodes to spawn. So cliff topology is going to, after the cliffs are in, it's going to mark off on the map where all the cliffs are so the nodes can spawn there, right? Rail ring is basically, it makes a rail ring. It makes your railroad has a ring, goes around the whole exterior, or usually around the extremities of the island. And then you'll have road layout, which is where the entire map of the rail, it builds an entire map of the rail system in memory. And then it'll actually like build a layout for you instead of just like, here's a ring and a bunch of stuff that's not attached to it, right? It actually do all the layout. Rail branching is the branches coming off to specific monuments, coming off of the main ring. Rail siding is the little offshoots when you're riding down the main ring there, the main rail. Little side tracks, usually where they pile the carts up and stuff like that. Rail terrain is basically going to bring the ground up and down to the level of the road, of the rail, I mean. And these are all the same for the road. So the road ring is going to do the same thing. It's going to make a main road ring around the extremity of the island here. And then the layout's the same thing. It's going to make a whole layout where it knows where to attach things and where to go. Trail layout is the same thing. The trail, the little brown dirt patches that go off to some monuments and things like that. Road topology, same thing. It's going to tell you can't build here. Same as the rail topology. Can't build here. This is the railroad, right? Or you can't build here. This is a road. And road terrain, same thing. It's going to bring the ground up or down to the level of the road. Road texture is the gravel at the side of the road. Rail texture is the gravel side of the rail. Road substations are the little electrical boxes and stuff like that on the road. I'm not a big fan of those, so I won't put them in here. Telephone poles, the same. I'm not a big fan of telephone poles. I won't put those in. But if you want them, put them in. The river layout is actually going to, plan where all the rivers are. They have to run from inland and they have to run to the shore. So it's going to plan all that out and their shape and stuff like that. And then it's going to lay down the topology. So this is a river. This is where the river is going to be, right? And then the river terrain, which is going to actually carve out the land for the river. The river texture, which is going to, make the gravel river beds and stuff like that. River objects is going to be corns and pumpkins at the side of the river. Road objects are, I believe, the bus stops. I believe. Roadside wrecks are the burnt out cars and stuff like that you see at the side of the road, right? So if you don't want those on there, you don't have to have them. And then we'll go to monuments. So rail monuments, yeah, we want rail monument, which is basically train yard, obviously, right? Mountains, do you want a mountain? I don't want a mountain on this map, but if you want a mountain, you can. Harbors, yeah. Fishing villages, sure. Desert military bases, yep. Arctic bases, yep. Main monuments, which is basically all your main monuments. That's outpost, bandit camp, dome, airfield, all that stuff. All the main monuments. Tiny monuments, I don't like these. These are the little like water plant things. I'm not a big fan of those. Take up space on the map. Swamps, same thing. I don't really like swamps. They take up space on the map. If you want any of these, you can put them in there. Ice lakes, we'll throw those in. Roadside monuments, that's your gas stations and your sperm marts and stuff like that. Caves, obviously, these are your underground caves and stuff like that. Offshore monuments are going to be your oil rigs. Lighthouses are obvious. Tunnel entrances. Tunnel entrances are going to be the underground tunnels, the underground subway cart tunnels. Those are going to be the entrances to and from your tunnel. And then the tunnels themselves. So it'll actually make a whole tunnel network and everything under here. We'll do all that. Underwater labs. You want some underwater labs? Throw them in there. Underwater entrances are the where you get in with the sub with the underwater labs. And then you get into the more of the terrain here. So cliffs are going to be when you got this big peak here and big steep areas. It's going to throw cliffs in there. Same as in the arid areas. It's going to do that in the arid area as well. Micro cliffs are all the little on hills and stuff like that. You see those big patches of little micro cliffs you always have to jump up and stuff. That's those. Large rock formations are the big rocks in the middle of the fields that usually, you build your base in the middle of those giant rocks in the middle of the field or whatever. Those are the big, slanted rocks you can climb to the top of and stuff, right? Big, large rocks. Medium rocks are the medium rocks. So in between those really big ones and the small ones, right? You've probably seen those two. Arctic rock formations, just rocks in the Arctic areas, right? Beach rock formations, obviously rocks on the beach. Beach rock formation. So one of these is like the big rock and one is the small rock, and I can't remember which one's which, but you can play with that and figure it out. I think the small rocks first and the big rocks second. I can't remember. But either way, I like them both, so I have them in there. Arid rock formations, just rocks in the desert. Shore ice. Yes, you want some shore ice, which is in the Arctic zones. It's going to put, shore ice. You've probably seen it. Arctic small rock formations. That's small rocks in the Arctic. If you're having problems with your FPS for some reason, you're on a turtle of a computer or you have a monster of a map, cutting down on your small rocks is a good way to save on your entity count. So that'll actually help a lot if you cut down your small rock formations. Underwater formations are going to be like the sunken ship and stuff like that. Icebergs, obviously. Icebergs and ice sheets are what connect the icebergs, obviously. So there you go. You can select or deselect any of those you want. A lot of these are totally optional. Other than the first few that we did, they're all totally optional. So make your selections and run selected procedural component. Now this is going to take a while because it's I'm basically running everything here. it's going to, as you can tell you what it's doing. It did the rail ring, did the build the build the plan, then it did the monuments. Now it's doing the rail layout, rail branching. And it's going to do the ring. I think it did the ring already. I didn't see it, but anyway, it's going to do all. It's going to build everything according to your choices. And when it's done, you're not necessarily done. You could play it. You could have played it before you started adding all this stuff, but this editor does the best job it can to create a map, and not everything always lines up properly. So you're going to have to go in here after and look at all the roads, and you're going to have to go in here and look at all the rails and make sure that everything's going to function properly and lines up properly. It does a lot of things like makes the railroad floating over the road itself, so you couldn't drive a car on it, or the railroad goes into the road and you couldn't, your train's not going to keep going because it goes into the ground, right? It does a lot of things like that, or it doesn't match the road up to where it's going perfectly. It's off and looks weird, right? And you usually have to edit little things like that. The road beds and the rail beds are very high and weird looking in some places, right? Especially near the gas station monuments and stuff like that. So we'll get into it after it's actually created this map here. We'll go and look around and see what it's done and all the little mistakes that it's made that you're going to have to go in and fix, obviously. But yeah, so it's building it all now. It's going to take a little bit. I have a pretty good computer, and it still takes a while. But it does tell you what it's doing. It's not like it's frozen or anything. And all those options that I selected here in the map and all the ones that were there, if you're making an actual true custom map, you're doing all that stuff yourself. You're not letting it put the monuments where it wants. You're putting the monuments where you want them. You're not letting it put in the road. You're building the road yourself, right? Same as the rail and the peaks and valleys and the hills and the shape of the land and everything, right? If you do it all yourself, then it's custom. If you're doing it like we just did it here, this is all procedural generation. This is not a custom map. You can have some custom options. Like I said, you get to customize the way it's built, but you don't actually get to build it. You're relying on Rustedit to do that for you. When you get into actual custom map making, you get a lot more options, but you're also restricted in some ways because things get harder to line up, and it's a lot of things just don't work. Yeah, we'll get into that later episodes when I show you custom map making. And a lot of the things just make sense. Like you're not going to totally disregard all procedural generation because that would be stupid. Obviously, you can save hours and hours and hours by, say, like procedurally generating your topology. So I don't have to tell every inch of the ground that, oh, this is a forest and this is a field and stuff like that. I can procedurally generate the topology and then go in there and edit it after, right? So you do use, with custom map making, you do use some procedural generation, but it's only because it's easier and it's a no-brainer, and because it'll give you exactly what you want. Things like the underground tunnels, right? The underground tunnels, all the entrances and stuff, where they are and things, you make all those, right? But when it comes to making the underground tunnels, you let it procedurally generate that, because it would take you literally 40 hours, maybe 30 hours if you were good at it, to sit there and build the actual tunnel system, which it's doing right now. It's doing the tunnel entrances right now, and then it's going to do the tunnels, and it'll do it all within like a minute. And that would take you hours and hours and hours and hours. So it's a no-brainer. You let the procedural generator do that, but you set it all up, everything you want before that. So you set up where the entrances are, things like that. So you are still using some procedural generation, but the procedural generation you are using, you heavily edit and customize. So for the most part, you're only using procedural generation to save you time, and when it doesn't matter, when the end result is going to be the same if you procedurally generated it, that's the only time. If you know, if there's no difference between the custom and procedurally generated, then you might as well use the procedurally generated. If you're not worried about making, say, custom forests and stuff like that, you might as well procedurally generate your forest. Save you a bunch of time. So we're at roads now. Geez, I don't remember what it ends on. I think it ends on like rivers or something like that. I usually don't do this procedural generation, but this does take a while. Sorry, you're gonna have to watch it. But once it loads up, I'll show you what I mean about having to fix things. We'll go over, you know, changing the roads a little bit, fixing things, making them look better. The things you're going to have to do, making sure things line up. I like to have a little checklist whenever I procedurally generate things, right? So, like if you're doing the procedurally generating the tunnels, which it's doing right now, so it did it pretty quick. But I like to go in there and check it when if I've procedurally generated tunnels, I'll go in there and not in the game, but in the editor, and I'll travel the whole tunnel system and just make sure everything lines up, because it doesn't always line up. Even if you do your best when doing the layout and stuff like that, it doesn't always line up. So you'll have to go in there and check it. We're getting close here. I feel we're getting close. There we go. All right. So it's done, and we can see here, if you just hit G, pull up the map, it'll show you everything, where everything is, what it's done. You can see you got our fishing villages over here, lighthouses, mining outposts, water treatment. There's our launch site, HQM quarry, missile silo. So there's obviously tier 3 up here, right? Tier 0 was down here from what I remember. So we'll be spawning down here, stone quarry, abandoned supermarket, ferry terminal, yeah, lighthouse, Arctic research base, abandoned supermarket. Yeah, you can tell this is tier 0, then it comes up to tier 1, and then up to tier 2 up here. So that's where everything is, and you can see it's put the road ring around the outside. This is the road ring right here. Goes around the whole island, and the road rail as well. It goes around the whole island, right? And basically what you're going to have to do now is you're going to have to come in here and make sure everything lines up. See, that doesn't line up. And see how it's made the bedding for the track, how it's like cut it off there and everything, and that doesn't really line up. It just doesn't look good, right? So the first thing I'll do is what the, oh, weird. I don't want to do that. Everything's 500. No thanks. First thing that I'll do is I'll go to my terrain tool and I'll smooth. I'll take a reasonable size tool here, and I'll just smooth this land down to help everything be at the same level and just make it easier for connecting, right? And then you're going to go to your path tool, and you're going to go road, and you're going to select this road here. And you see how I can click on it and it pulls up all these little nodes here. And these are basically waypoints on the road. I could put down new ones. If I hold down control and click somewhere, it'll put a new one down there, right? So I could take this one and I can move it back. And then I could take the one I just put down and I could put it up against that road. Another good trick when you're editing roads here is you want to preview mesh up in the path tools here. Preview mesh, and it's going to show you what it's going to look like in the game. So if you do that, when you go to line things up, it's a little bit more accurate as to what's going on in the game. And you would sit here and basically line it up nice, right? There we go. Lines up good. And you could either finish editing and close, or I like to make sure everything's all the splat and topologies and everything are proper. So I will Control A, which selects the entire road, right? No matter how long it is, you can tell this one says right there 77 objects selected. So that's 77 nodes long that road is. And then I will I've done Control A, which is selects all, and then I can go apply terrain modifiers. As you can see, it basically builds that bed out. And then I can go Splat modifiers, it gives us the gravel at the sides. Topology modifier, which tells it, hey, there's a road here you can't build. And side topology modifiers, which is the actual road loot that it puts at the sides. This number here, 8, is distance out how far the loot's going to spawn from the road. So give you an idea, 8 is that. So I usually like to give it, if I'm building my own custom map, I usually give it about a 12, sometimes a 14. It just gives a little bit bigger of a loot area, so it's not right there at the side of the road all the time. But that's all up to you. If you actually go into your topology here and look at, say, roadside, if I could find it, roadside, boom. And you can tell where the road used to be, where the side of the road used to be before we fixed it, still says it's roadside, but that's not roadside anymore. So we'll have to go in here and go to the eraser and basically erase the roadside off the road so stuff doesn't spawn on the road. If you didn't, you would have barrels and crates and stuff spawning on the road there. Not a huge deal, but still something. If you're editing the map, it's something you're going to want to do. Now here's an extreme case. Not sure how it. That's what I mean. Rustedit does this kind of thing, guys. Not sure how it got it that wrong, but I'll show you how to fix it. This kind of stuff happens all the time. Like I did over there with the smoothing. You're going to have to bring this land up to a height with, like, these roads got to match, right? I'm not sure how it carved this big, giant, deep road in there when it could have all been level to begin with. But, this is Rustedit. This is how it works. So I'll go into my train tool, and I will actually bring my flatten tool out. And flatten, what it does is it brings everything up to a certain level. So I'll have a little bit of a smooth edge, so it's not that hard of an edge. I'll make this a bit bigger. Oops. A bit bigger so I don't have to do many movements. And then if I hold down Control and then right click it, it'll actually change the height that I want to the height where I'm clicking. So I want it at this height, and I'll just go in here and fill this in, right? Fill all that in. And you can tell this is not looking that great right here, but we can mess with that too. So then I'll want to come in here and smooth this all down. And it's going to look bad right up until the end. But this is what you're going to have to do. You're going to have to sit here, depending on how good or bad of a job it did. You're going to have to sit here with all the rails and roads and make sure everything is copacetic. Otherwise, it's going to look like crap. People are going to complain. There's might be areas where they fall through the map and stuff. So you got to watch out for that kind of thing. And also, when you're editing around here and you're smoothing all this stuff, pay attention to these rocks. A lot of these have open faces, and if you move the land too much, you'll have an open rock where people could, like, build bases, invisible bases in the rocks and stuff. I don't know if you've ever seen servers like that where there's a gap under the rock that you can get in. So just pay attention when you're smoothing the land or altering the land. Just pay attention to the rocks around. If I was making a custom map, if you're making a custom map, you put the rocks in last, so you don't have to worry about any of that. But if you're editing a procedurally generated map, these are the things you got to worry about. All right, so we'll just smooth all that over. And as you can see, the roads look like crap now, but they are pretty easy to fix. We can just go to Paths, Road. We'll select this guy here. He's running underground right now. Control A selects everything, remember? We can see this is the main ring road. It's got 1,189 nodes. This is the road that goes around the entire map. So I'll go, first thing I'll do is I'll snap to terrain, and that brings everything up to the level of the terrain, right? We're going to want a preview mesh. This shows you what it's going to look like in game. All right. And then we're going to want to, I don't know why it even made this road here. It goes off somewhere else. That's weird. But if I made this, none of this weird road stuff would be here. The main ring road would come through, would pass right about here. This would connect to it, and then all that other stuff would be superfluous. But anyway, we brought it up to, we've snapped it to terrain. We have applied splat modifiers, which gives us our gravel roads, our topology modifiers. We haven't moved the road or anything, so that's all going to be the same. You don't need to apply any of that, but you do need to snap it to terrain, bring it up to the same level as the terrain, and to preview the mesh. Any road or rail you edit, you're going to want a preview mesh. So that's that road. The hills are nice and gradual now. There's nothing super major, ugly or anything. I'm going to say with this guy here, Control A will snap to terrain. As you can see, he doesn't quite meet the road, so I'll hold down Control, click here, add one more node. Make sure we got preview mesh on, because we are editing the road, and then boom, there we go. That meets up nice. You can Control A again, apply our Splat modifier, our Topology modifier, and our Side Topology modifier. And then we're going to want to, again, go back to our roadside topology and erase the roadside off of the middle of the road so barrels and crates don't spawn there. And there we go. It's looking good. And then we just need to do it to this guy here, who's, I don't even know if it's needed, but I wouldn't have put the main road there. I'd have the main road out here because it's right underneath that, but I don't know, man. This is when you're getting procedural generated, this is what you're getting. So we'll do the same thing, Control A. We'll snap to terrain, preview mesh. As you can see here, it actually goes too far. So we can click on this node and we can hit the delete button, the delete key, and it'll disappear. And then we can just line this node up where it needs to be. And then I will get my, topology tool. Erase that roadside topology. And then I'm going to get my Splat tool. I'm just going to get rid of that extra gravel side of the road there. Change it back to grass. Don't need a big patch of gravel at the side of the road for no reason. All right. And just to make sure we got the gravel for our road, we'll apply the Splat modifiers. There we go. Finish editing and close. As you can see, this thing here. Shouldn't be across the main road like that. If I built the road ring myself, I would have it, like I said, passing probably around here, and it would just go like that instead of all this weirdness. And you can sit there and fix that if you want, but these are the things you're going to have to deal with procedural generation. That lines up there. That lines up good enough there. Okay, so launch pad is done. And then you can just go, from 1 to 1 along here. Like this doesn't line up. Yeah, it's not bad. I'd probably leave that. These are the trails, these brown dirt trails I was telling you about. So those are the generated trails. As you can see, they bring, they make a path as well. And the path comes up. And a lot of times it looks really weird. Like, what I like to do is smooth those out as well. So you probably have to go through here and do a lot of smoothing, train editing, just so things don't look as bad, right? Having peaks and valleys is fine, but having this giant bed that runs the whole length of the map just because you have a road there or something isn't good. Or when it carved into the terrain here, that wasn't good either, right? This isn't too bad. If I was making the map, I would put cliffs here. Procedural generation doesn't, and it'll just leave a hard edge that doesn't look good. So you smooth that down a bit. Same as these dirt paths. You can see these dirt paths are all kicked up on the edges for no reason, right? You'll want to smooth those down. And we haven't even tried dealing with a railroad yet. So the same thing you're going to have to do when you did with the road here. There's going to be a lot of this roads and rails, and it's going to be a lot of trial and error too. You're going to have to load this map into onto a server and play it to figure out what's wrong with it. And just like I keep a notepad side of my desk here, and I just write down the location on the map and what needs to be fixed. And then next time I edit the map, I just go in there and fix all the stuff, right? So as you can see, it cut out this hill for the rail here. It looks bad, so get rid of that too. That looks better. Smooth all that down, and then we're gonna have to do the same thing we did with the other roads. So you get your path tool, and we'll do the road first. Control A. This is our main ring road. Again, you can see 1189 objects. Already got preview mesh on there, so that's good. We're going to snap this to the train. It brings everything up to the train level, and then we're going to finish editing because we don't need any more. And now we're going to do the same thing to the rail. So we'll switch over to rail. This is the main rail ring. You see how it ends and starts right here. This is one, and it goes all the way around the map and comes back here. It's how many is that? That's a lot. It's 1,541 nodes, so more than the main road ring. Anyway, same thing with this. We're editing it, so we're going to want a preview mesh. Shows you how everything's going to be. And as you can see now, it comes up over the road nicely. Snap to terrain. Make sure you snap to terrain. It brings it up. But if you have preview mesh on and it shows you where it's going to be, that's where it's going to be in the game. So we're all good here. That one is done. We can finish editing. Now we're going to go over to this one. And we're going to do the same thing. Control A. Snap to terrain. Preview mesh. We're going to make sure it lines up, which it kind of does. That probably wouldn't derail, but I do want to fix it because it doesn't look all that great. So these, when you're properly connected, you'll see a bit of the rail on either side of the rail you're connecting. So you can see a little bit of the rail there. and you can't see any on the other side, which means technically it looks good, but technically I should go over a little bit more. You want to be able to see it from both sides there. Now you can. As you can see, I can see it from here and from there. Oops. So that is very well connected. Not going to have any problems with that. You know, you'll have to pay attention to height too, but if you have your snap to terrain, should do all that for you. So there, we fixed that one intersection. And then, you know, you have to go along with the rail especially and make sure these all line up, all these connections line up. And they seem to be pretty good so far. But you'll find some that don't. You'll find road crossings that need fixing. There's another connection here that needs fixing. And I don't want to sit here and do this entire thing, guys, but just show you basically how it works. That one's good. You can see it on both sides. Yep. And basically that's procedural map generation. You'll still sit here and fiddle with stuff. You know what I mean? Like take these harsh creases off the beds here. Make sure that your railroad tracks aren't going to ground out on your roads, or your roads don't go over top of things. Make sure they all line up properly. That doesn't look too bad, but I'd probably fix that. Same as that one. Half of your road going over that road, right? Yeah, and basically where the roads connect to things, like to monuments and stuff, or go past like these roadside monuments. This is a common thing too. It dips down. This one isn't bad, but I've seen them create like giant crevasses just in order to line up with one of these supermarkets or something, right? So you're going to want to go and follow all these roads and all these trails and just make sure everything lines up properly, because with Rustedit, a lot of times it doesn't. As you can tell, there's a lot of work still needs to be done on the rails here, right? There's still patches where you need to fix it, obviously. For the most part, it puts everything in good spots, and like, you know, you're just gonna have to go in here and fix this nonsense. I don't know what it's done here, but you're gonna have to go and fix that as well. That's rather ugly as well. Do something about that. Yeah, basically, you just come in here and fix everything, and then once you've done that and you've fixed everything, all the problems are solved on the surface. You should go underground to your train station and do the same thing. A lot of the times, the train station itself, the tunnels are fine. It's the links in between. So if you check here, that's from the surface to the floor. And just make sure they actually connect. Like this one doesn't connect. You can see right here. If I was to play in-game, if I was to come down here, right? And you come down the bottom of your tunnels and then into your... All right, cool. I'm going to open this door and into a room where I could basically just see. I turn the light on there. So if I go through that door, oh, now I could just fall through the map here. It doesn't actually connect, right? It's close, but it doesn't actually connect. And it's not supposed to connect there either. This piece right here, this opening here, is supposed to be on this opening here. So it's off by quite a bit. And to fix that, the only way I've been able to fix something like that is you would go in here and delete all the, like you can select all these one by one, right? So you go in here and delete this whole tunnel connection, right? And all the way up to the top here. You can't delete this because it's part of Outpost, right? This here is part of Outpost. But you delete all that whole connection except for that, right? So from there all the way down to the bottom here, where it's supposed to connect, right? And then you get rid of all of Actually, there's none of it there, but if there was stuff connected to this side too, you would get rid of that. And then you would go up to outpost, and you would select your outpost here, and you would go snap to tunnel grid. See, and it actually didn't even fix it. Usually it would have moved it over. But what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to go in here and delete all this stuff. And you're going to have to do it again. That's why when I'm making maps, custom maps, the tunnels are the last thing that I do, because they often mess up. This is not what I want. It's supposed to line up right here. All right. So I will, what part do I? Yeah, that's all part of the station. So you don't delete that. You just delete the junction in between. And then you go up to your tools, procedural tools, custom, and tunnel links. And you can go clear all tunnel links. Create tunnel links. There we go. And hopefully this time it did it right. So you see we'll come down the shaft here. We'll start going down stairs. We'll go through our door. And nope, it didn't do it again. So you're going to have to sit here and play with this to try to get it to line up. That's what you're going to have to do. I'm not sure why it's not doing it right now. Usually, that's all you'd have to do is you go here, procedural tools, custom, tunnel links, clear all tunnel links. You can tell how prevalent this problem is because he has a special tool just for it, right? That should tell you something. Make sure we'll select our compound, and we got to snap to tunnel grid. So it didn't move at all. Another thing you can try doing is rotating it. So I'll rotate. Say I rotate it 180. Our roads don't really line up anymore. We can fix all that. We know how to do that. And they're close though. But we'll go snap to tunnel grid again. See how it nudged over a little bit. We're going to have to. This big hole that it left here. That's the alpha hole. There's alpha is if you want to go into tunnels or anything like that and have holes in the map, you need to have an alpha layer, and that's what tells the engine that the player is allowed to pass through here. So what I'm going to have to do is go to my terrain. Sorry, not my terrain. My alpha, and I'm going to have to delete eraser. Any alpha around here because I don't want to be falling through the map. All right. And then we're going to go to our splat. I'm just going to make everything grass really quick. All right. And then I can just select my compound. And I can go apply biome, apply height, apply splat, topology, and alpha. Okay. So now I've repositioned Outpost. This is in a totally different spot. It's really far away, but we'll see. We'll see what it does. Tools, procedural tools, custom tunnel links. Here we go, guys. Create tunnel links. Okay. Okay. So it actually goes into a corridor now. A nice long corridor, too. Look at this. This is Outpost. You got to fight on your hands if you're going from Outpost. All right. So it seems like we've finally fixed it. Everything connects properly. And everything's fixed. So you might have to go to that extreme, actually, guys, to get things to work on a procedurally generated Rust map. So when I'm creating a map, and I'll go into it more with the custom tutorials, but I'm actually laying these prefabs down one at a time. I'll go to, say I want to put down Outpost, which they call compound. I'll just go compound, and I would load it up here, and I would drag it, and I'd drop it on the map somewhere. Say I want compound here. Now I'd take it out, and I'd just put it down. I don't know if that happened. If you type in H, it brings up a scene hierarchy, and that's just basically everything in the game. It tells you where it is and that it's there. So I'm just going to go to compound. So I don't know if it actually put one in here when I dragged it in. It didn't look like it, but sometimes you go to drag something in, and it just puts it in the middle of nowhere. See what I mean by a lot of cliffs? A lot of cliffs. Compound, only one compound. Good. All right. So you want to drag your compound over and put it right here, right? I want my outpost to be there. And this is, I've worked out a good place on the map for it. This is where I want it to be, right? You drag it over there. It's precisely where I want it. And then before you do any of your masks here, your modifiers, make sure you snap to tunnel grid. See how it moved a little bit there? When you snap to tunnel grid, it puts the monument onto the same grid as the tunnel, even if the tunnel doesn't exist. Your entrances and exits need to be at a certain XY to line up to the tunnel grid. So whenever you're placing anything, any kind of prefab that has a tunnel entrance on it, you're going to want to snap to tunnel grid. And basically, I'm sure the editor does that with procedural generation, but it doesn't always work out. As we just saw, I had to realign the outpost. And there's other ones you might have to, too. So you're going to have to go around to each one of these monuments that has a station, and you're going to have to make sure they all line up, right? So this one does line up. You can see it's perfectly fine. Now that includes, if you open up the map here, they put these like out in the middle of nowhere entrances for your tunnel, right? So if I double click on something on this map, it'll teleport me there, by the way. So this one right here, these little silo tunnel entrances, right? So you'll have to check these out too, right? You have to go down and make sure these all connect. And for the most part, I mean, sometimes 100% of them will connect, right? But, every now and then, one or two of them won't. So it's enough where you have to actually go and check. This one does connect, and it's fine. So, yeah, basically, that's what you got to do. You can see here is what I was talking about. The level of the road is a little ridiculous. This is the road path, right? You don't really get to choose any of that when you're doing custom, when you're doing procedurally generated. This is just what it gives you. And you're going to have to go in here with our handy smooth tool and fix this because it looks bad. I could probably have a little bit of, okay, there's a bit of a landslide there and that truck's half buried. Yeah, that's fine, right? I could deal with that. That doesn't look bad. Nowhere near as bad as this giant cliff right before the gas station, like what happened there, right? A lot of that doesn't look good. So you just kind of smooth it out with your smooth tool. And you don't want to abuse your smooth tool either, because then you lose all your hills and stuff. So you pretty much use it just where you need it. And then we'll go back to our paths, to our road. This is our main rail ring around, so we already got our preview meshes already selected. All right. Select all by Control A, snap to terrain. And as you can see, it still looks bad, even though I have snap to terrain. So we're going to finish editing and close, go back to our smooth tool, and just smooth it down until it looks better. There we go. Back to our paths. Control A, snap to terrain. Just gotta keep doing this until it looks good. And it's getting closer and closer every go around. And like I was saying before, guys, if there's a lot of rocks and stuff around here, cliffs and things, you're going to want to make sure that you're not going too far down. So you can see they do go into the ground a little bit, but if you bring that ground too far down, they're just open at the back. So it can create like glitches on your map and places where people can get into the rocks and build bases in there and maybe even fall through the map and stuff, which you don't want. You don't want any of that kind of stuff. That's a train tool. There we go. So you've taken that ugly nonsense and turned it into something a little bit better, I think. Do it here too. Looking a little rough. Sure, you're all good. It's got a little bit of show through here. I could keep smoothing that down until it goes away. Okay, well that's just showing through because it's dumb. I'm going to apply my splat modifiers, terrain modifiers, topology, side, finish editing, and we're good. All right. So as you can see, it does take a little bit of time to smooth things down and make it look good, fix any kind of errors or whatever. I'm already an hour in on this map, and you would probably realistically spend another, geez, it's hard to say. You would do it in spurts. So you would sit here and fix what you could see, and then you would load the game up on a server and play it some, find out what you need to fix more, and then do that. So realistically, I'd say another 8 to 10 hours of working on this map, and you would have something that is presentable as a an actual Rust map that doesn't have any glaring issues or anything like that. You can go in here, like I said, throw in your prefabs and stuff like that if you wanted to download some free prefabs or make your own or whatever. And you could just load up your prefab list here. I'll go to my custom prefabs and pull out one that I made. It's just trash dome. And you just drag it into your map here. Come on. Uh-oh. Good. I thought it was going to crash for a sec. So you just drag it in your map. Dude, why is it doing this again? So another thing it does is sometimes when you import things, it ruins your selection tool. So now I can't select things for some reason. You go hit H and go to your scene hierarchy. You can always go in here. And what I'm looking for is trashed dome. Oh, come on. Another thing it does is it shows that it's on the map here, but it might not actually be on the map. Sometimes the editor glitches and it's not actually on the map, but this one is. So double click it, select it. Normally I can just click on it to select it or anything, but that selection tool is broke now because I entered a prefab for some reason. Anyway, so you put your prefab in there and say you want it there, and I want to snap to terrain. That'll bring everything to an average level of where the build wants to be, right? And then I would apply my modifiers like you would the road or anything else I was showing you. All this one has the height mask, and that just makes sure that everything is at the right height for this monument. As you can see, it's made like a crater circle around it just to make sure everything's at the right height. We're going to make that look good by smoothing out the edges. You don't have to smooth either. You can also say like raise lower terrain. Just make sure your opacity is down. If you have a high opacity, or I'll show you, if you say if I want to add a little bit of terrain here, right, and I got a high opacity of 100, and I just click a button here, all I did was one click, and it put this giant, monstrous, ugly thing here. That's because my opacity is at 100. If I change my opacity to say like 10, around 10, somewhere around there. Now if I do one click, that was actually holding it down. If I do one click, there you go. It just gives you a little bit of lumpy land, right? Which is what you want. So now I can just go in here really quick, lay in a bunch of lumpy land. All right, and if you hold down Alt, it goes down, so lower. Regular click is raise, Alt click is lower. So I can lower these high ridges instead of filling in the low valleys kind of thing, right? And between the two, you can get something that looks decent, right? It's lumpy land, and it's probably overly lumpy, so you're going to want to probably still smooth this out after. But, as you can see, it does look a little bit better than just smoothing the edges. Now I've got some texture to my land. And we're good to go. That's our custom monument placed in. Some monuments have other still not letting me select it. But yeah, some monuments have other modifiers like topology and biome and stuff like that, but this one only has the basic height to make sure everything lines up with the map. Anyway, guys, that's basically Rustedit in a nutshell. That's really all you need to know to make a map. Procedurally generated. Now you would just save as, and you'd save it as whatever map you want. And you would load it into your server, and everything should be fine. Like I said, it's Rustedit though, so that's not always the case. But for the most part, it should work out fine. And then you'll sit here for hours just editing railroads and roads and cliffs and everything. You're going to want to make custom areas if you want to customize the map at all. That's going to take time. So a couple of resources for you guys if you're going to do any map editing. First thing you're going to want to do is go over to Codefling here, and you're going to want to get their topology, visual topology guide. It's free. It's a map that you can upload to your server, and just start a server on your basic computer there. It can be temporary, it doesn't matter. It's just to test stuff, right? And basically it's just a map of all the interactions between the biome, the splat, the topography on the map, right? And so you can see this is the temperate area, and this will be like hilltop. This is ocean. This is riverside, right? This is roadside. So this roadside here, this whole ring here, roadside, there's going to be roadside loot because that's where the roadside loot spawns. So if you load up this map and you look down this whole corridor, it's going to be nothing but road loot, right? So anyway, if you download this and load it up on a server, it actually shows you, gives you a good idea of what you want in a map. So you can see here, these are all just different circles, these same circles from the map. And in the distance, you can see there's, some have trees and some just have open fields with junk on them. This is going to be roadside right there. You can see this whole line here is probably roadside. Yeah, it's just looking right down roadside right now. Yeah, basically that's it. This is going to be, that is going to be basically forest. Oh, you even paused it there. Yeah, that is river in the forest biome. Anyway, so you're going to want that, and also it gives you the idea of what the land's going to look like in game. So you're going to want to grab that, and it just basically shows you, if you're making a custom map, what you want. And then also over in the assets, you go over to assets here. Some of these are pay, some of these are free. The pay ones seem to be better and work better. Some of the free ones are janky and crash your game or crash the editor or whatever. You're just going to have to play with them and find out. But anyway, you go over to monuments or prefabs or bases, and you can just see these are free. We'll sort by free. And we'll just see what people have made that you can download and just put on your map. Like I put that trash dome on the map. You can download these and put these on your map, right? Just a way to customize your map a little bit. Doesn't make it a custom map, but it adds customness to your map. So there's a bridge, there's a castle, there's who knows what that is. Fully reworked cargo, so you can use their cargo instead of yours. Yeah, there's a tree house, small cabin. There's little things you can put. There's a processing station, right? Little things you can put on your map. Slum dwellings, greenhouse, all that stuff. Also monuments, and monuments tend to be things that you can do. So like you get your red card, green card, blue card, and you can get in there and get the loot and stuff like that. These are usually bigger builds. And from what I've experienced, as far as monuments go, free monuments usually aren't all that great, and the paid monuments are a lot better. So, you touch and go. You just try out what you want. These are all the free ones here. I've tried like Cobalt Bunker, never worked for me. These storage tanks, I think this one worked. That one worked for me. But anyway, you can go through here and find different prefabs, whether you pay for them or not, and put them into your map. just to make it a little bit different. There's other videos that show you how to load a prefab into Rustedit, but this is a good resource. You're going to want to come here, guys, and get some assets. Anyway, that is Rustedit in a nutshell, at least for procedural generation. If there's any questions or comments or whatever, just leave them down in the comment section below. I'll do my best to answer any questions and to keep in touch with you guys down there. I do work full-time, 8 to 10 hours a day, and play a lot of Rust as well and map editing, so I don't have a shitload of time, but I have enough that I can answer questions. So if you got any questions, just leave them down below. Next videos, we'll get into custom map generation, starting with the very top of the procedural generation chart, which was the height map. So until next time, guys, enjoy. Sorry this is a little bit longer of a video, but I had to cover a lot. If it wasn't clear already to you guys, everything in here that we've generated is an object. You can click on any one of these. Normally my selection tool is broken right now because Rustedit's bad, but normally you can click on any one of these and say, like, I wanted to move a cliff. There it is. You can select anything in the game. Normally you can just click on it, but right now my selection tool is broken. You just click on it and then you can move this stuff up and down, left and right. Straight out delete it if you want. You know, all these manipulations you can do to it. Flip it around. So I mean, like, by the back sides are open on these things, so you got to make sure that they're facing the right way. You got to make sure that they're fully sealed to the floor, because if you take the ground away too much on one side, now it's open and players can get in there, right? So you got to pay attention to these things. Control E lets you rotate things in all the axes. Control R lets you size them in all axes. And Control W just lets you move them around in all axes. So that's basically your control over items in the game. Delete deletes it. There you go. Or you can just undo it all. There we go. Anyway, guys, more of that on later versions. We talk about custom map generation. Later, guys.